All right, I'm finally living the lifestyle that I have always wanted, even though I didn't know exactly how to get to it until mm, maybe this century. I knew where I wanted to go, but I didn't exactly know how to get there till the past year, and that is being able to play music anytime I feel like it, not worrying about income because I'm making money from the stock market. Yeah, the stock market. I became a stats freak when I was first getting involved with music and radio. I started studying the charts and I wanted to know data about music. And so that's kind of how I moved up to be program director, whereas a lot of people who were just jocks, they just wanted to be on the air. They didn't care about being in programming or management or anything else besides being on the air. So I wanted both. I wanted to be on the air, plus I wanted to control what I was playing. So I needed to be, at least a music director, and I eventually became a program director at Quad here in Sacramento. So I always wanted to be able to, not worry about money and focus on music, like learn about music, learn as much as I can about how to play instruments and writing songs and just studying music, my favorite artists, and learning, how to use them as a reference for me to record, even though I'm still light years away from being able to sound as good as my favorite groups, the Beatles, the Moody Blues, just the list goes on of just high quality artists who wrote songs with meaning and feeling and songs that changed the world because they were just unique songs. I mean, I could name several by the groups I've just named. Beatles, I could keep going on and on how All You Need Is Love was not their only anthem. I mean, they had songs like We Can Work It Out. 8 days a week is starting to get into the absurdity of creativity. Adding an extra day to the week to have extra fun. That's cool. No one else came up with that idea before. I mean, Day Tripper is a really head trip song, and it's built on a riff. Like a lot of their songs were built on riffs. Ticket to Ride is kind of built on a riff. And these are just monumental songs. Lady Madonna, I Am the Walrus, Strawberry Fields Forever, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. These are all just timeless, mind blowing, meaningful songs. I mean, one of the most meaningful was a Paul McCartney song, Eleanor Rigby. I mean, they all knew how to bring meaning to the puzzle, George Harrison's song on Sergeant Pepper, his only song on that album, Within You, Without You. That's like a mind blowing song about the universe and how the universe is divided into the material world and the spiritual world. And that there just weren't songs like that before. Plus, he was using Eastern instruments, the sitar, and that was creating a whole new pop sound for America. Moody Blues, wow. Ride My Seesaw, what a great song. I mean, that song is about life's struggle in general, and it even kind of alludes to what I'm going to be talking about, which is the stock market. If you pay attention to those lyrics carefully, even though it might not have been the intent of the song, but they match the idea of what needs to happen or what does happen in the stock market. I worked like a slave for years. That's learning how the stock market works. It literally takes years to learn it if you're just doing it from scratch. But if you have a mentor or you can learn quickly by listening to others who know what they're talking about. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't have any professional credentials that suggest someone should listen to me about how to invest or trade in the stock market. But I can share with you how I've really built up my account this past summer after years and years and years of kind of getting by in the stock market, doing well. Like I'd go in spurts, like I'd have like a few months of just really good trades, and then I'd have a bad month that would set everything back, like lower than what the account had been before, and stuff like that. So it was wobbly. And so then when Trump got elected, I didn't think good things would happen in the stock market because of the way he was talking about certain things, how he was going to, I don't know, help the oil industry, which hurts a lot of other industries when that happens. Um, and I was big into solar and other green energy type stocks. So I just backed out of the stock market in December of 2024. I just thought, man, I watched, a bunch of stocks shoot up to fake high levels after he was elected. So he did help the market rally at first, like the first month. But after that, stocks started trickling down and went back to their normal fair value levels. And I had a feeling that was going to happen. So I sat out for 6 months. I still had a little bit of money. I made little tiny trades the first 6 months of 2025. But starting in June, I started putting lumps of money back into the market. I started like with 2,500 in June, and now it's September, and I'm up to near 7,000. And that's a combination of making money and putting more money in the market. So that is what's happening. I don't think I'm going to be rich in the next year. However, once I get to $25,000, and that is a goal, regardless of my winnings or not, even though I'm winning like over 75% of trades, I mean, easily, it's almost all trades I'm winning, but that doesn't mean it's always going to happen, because it could be just we're in a lucky season right now where the things I like keep going up. I like solar. I'm a big solar fan, and even after Trump got elected, solar stocks, they plunged a little bit for a while, but then they rebounded when it's part of the AI craze. Because in order for the AI craze to make any sense, all these companies investing in AI are going to also have to invest in data centers. And one way to keep data center costs low is to invest in solar. So, and then Trump couldn't kill solar, even though he acted like he wanted to. He acted like solar's a really bad idea, and he's just some old world oil guy. But no, solar survives in the Trump era, and so that's how I've been doing well all summer. Just really, it's come down to, I mean, one main stock has helped me make a lot of money, and that's been Sunrun. It's a solar stock. It's the number one solar installer in America, okay, for home residential PV. It stands for photovoltaic, which is solar panels. That's what is the technology that goes into solar panels. So anyway, they partner with Tesla, and they have a woman CEO. They're a pretty modern company, and I've talked about them before in videos. Like last year, I was very much making lots of money off of them last year. So I want to explain why. Well, for one thing, they seem like a long-term player in the solar market. Like there's gonna be solar players, and one of the big ones is called First Solar, and they're more of a utility level solar company. There's others, but the one I focus on the most is Sunrun. They're based out of San Francisco. It's mainly because they're the number one home residential solar installer in America. Okay, plus they're always putting out good news. They do have some challenges as far as finances, but they keep beating Wall Street analyst estimates when it comes to earnings reports, and they one of the big Wall Street firms just raised their target price to $19, and this stock is currently trading around between $16 and $17. And one of the things I look for besides high volume stocks, meaning they trade millions of shares a day, is companies that seem to have a long-term outlook that's pretty bright. How could you be brighter than solar? You know, it all comes from the sun. And just like the Beatles song, Here Comes the Sun, that song just really, to me, solidifies the greatness of this era we're in, because it's actually one of the best-selling songs of this century as far as downloads and all that, digital music sales. Here Comes the Sun, that's right. It's, you know, that's what makes it a great song. It's timeless. It pops up in different eras as a big song. And because we're in the solar energy era, where solar keeps getting bigger, coal is shrinking. And no matter what Trump thinks, he wants to bring back coal, which is the dirtiest form of energy. So he doesn't know much about pollution, apparently. But he is big on oil, the industry that's lied to us for decades about climate change, how there's no such thing as climate change. Still, they finally admitted it, that they were funding all these think tanks and phony talk show type things that fooled a lot of people, that there's no such thing as climate change. Sorry, but the oil biz admitted it. And that's partly why California is suing the big oil companies for defrauding Californians. You know, not just about climate change, but about oil prices and oil supplies. So anyway, that's going off on a tangent. I usually don't invest in oil or trade oil. I'm more of a trader than an investor. In fact, I wouldn't even call myself an investor, because I don't hold stock for very long. I just buy it one day and sell it the next. That makes me what's called a swing trader. If I were buying within the same day and selling it that same day, I'd be called a day trader. And I do make 3-day trades a week while my account is under $25,000. But eventually, when I hit $25,000, and I will, just by adding money all the time, even if I'm not making money from trading, I'll be adding money till I get up to 25,000, and then I'll be able to day trade as much as I want, not just 3 times a week, but hundreds of times a week, just hundreds of times a day if I want. And I already know how to day trade as far as taking money and yanking it out of the market. But see, I'm not greedy, and the whole secret to this game, and there's many secrets to it, really, because there's many styles of playing. And I call it a game, not a business, because I know what I'm up against. I'm up against what are called market makers. Those are the big players in the game who set the stock prices. The stock prices only change when big institutions move the stock, not when little guys like me trade. So my 100 shares of whatever isn't going to move the stock price, but there are millions of shares of whatever are going to move the stock price. It's going to affect supply and demand, okay? So, and they get to short stocks and knock them down if they feel like it, so they can buy back lower. That's how the game works. I've seen actual market makers, ex-market makers, talk about this, and professional traders talk about this on YouTube, admitting that's what's really going on. And that when you use a stop-loss order, which is when you put in an order to automate exiting the trade if the price hits too low of a number. You You don't want to lose any more than that, so you stop the loss, and that's why it's called a stop loss order. Anyway, the market makers, they prey on those things. They can see those orders, and they can take the price of the stock lower by taking out those orders. So you didn't realize that they were playing that game, huh? Well, some market makers have admitted this, and others have tried to deny this. You know, there's the actual Wall Street professionals who put out these bum trip videos trying to mislead people, saying that that doesn't exist in the market. It's all a free market, so just quit being paranoid. Anyway, I've made thousands of trades to the point where I've learned my own system, and that's really the secret. Everyone has to learn their own system. I can tell you my system, and maybe it'll work for you. I don't know, but you still have to do the work. Um, Basically, when I say system, I mean I have a process of what kind of stock I want to trade. And I'll just tell you, there's about 10 different stocks I flipped through at any given time that I'm checking. I'm checking their prices during market hours. And those are the stocks I researched. There's about 10 of them. And they change over time, because the market changes over time. But anyway, one of them, like I'll just tell you, one of my favorite is Sunrun. And what I look for, and the reason it's one of my favorites, is because I studied the history of its pricing, and I learned that most of the time, not always, it's always going to fall back at some point. But I'm still going to capitalize most of the time if I'm always following this game of, these are the most important metrics that I think matter in stock trading. Every stock has an opening price for any given day, a low, a high, a closing price, and amount of volume, meaning amount of shares traded. And the way I make my charts is I put green numbers in where it's up from the previous day. So in other words, whether it's the open, high, low, close, or volume, I make it green if it's higher than the previous day, and I make it red if it's lower than the previous day. And then I color in the boxes for the lowest and highest in each of those categories: open, high, low, close, volume. Okay, so what I do is at the end of a day, that's kind of the beginning of my trade. On the West Coast, the market closes at 1 p.m. On the East Coast, which is, everyone refers to that timing, is 4 p.m. is when the market closes, Eastern time. But for me, it's right around lunchtime, and it's right before I go to lunch. So it's kind of a different mindset to me. And I still got most of the day to play with, which in other words, play guitar with. So what I do is I look for stocks that have a pattern of regularly hitting higher prices than the previous day's closing price. So here we can go back in time. This is the current. It goes from current to the past this way. So we can start down here is like 12 days ago. And so the closing price on that date, on September 4th, 2025, was 1643 was the closing price there. And then the next day, the high was 1832. So I could have made over $1, like almost $2 in trading. And if it's 100 shares, that means $200. If it's just 10 shares, that would have been $20. So I don't trade one share at a time. I don't know anyone who does. There are people with the bigger stocks that, $500 stocks, you could buy one share, and eventually it'll be worth $600, hopefully. There's no guarantees in this game. That's why I don't call it a business. There is risk involved with every trade, but I've learned the ranges of stocks that I like. They stay in a certain range. To a lot of people, none of the numbers make any sense. They're just like, huh? How come it's so up and down? Well, it basically goes through cycles, like a merry-go-round. So it has lows and highs. It's got valleys and mountains, and it shifts between those two modes. And it's just a matter of getting used to, okay, what are the normal lows and what are the normal highs? And I use this chart to look at lows, and I just look, are the lows getting higher? If they are, and they are in this case, that means it's a good sign that it's in an uptrend. So anyway, I can go through each of these days, and there were only a couple where it was a bad trade. Like on this day, this is as high as it got recently, $18. The next morning it was $18.10. Oh, it was about the same price, and then after that it slipped. It fell hard. So luckily I was not in the stock that day. But then after it fell, if we go a couple days later, it went from 1603 to 1673. So that's 70 cents up. Okay, 70 cents. Remember, if that's 100 shares, that's $70. That's what I normally trade, 100 shares, sometimes 200, and sometimes up to 500, and once in a while 1,000, if I really believe it's happening. Okay, so on this day, the next day, it was closed at 1620, and the high the next day was 1726. So I could have made over $1 there, or something like that, yeah. And then I could have been, after selling it here, I could have bought it back at 16, sold it the next day at 1642. Then I could have bought it again at the close at 1606, then sold it the next day at 1690. And then I could have bought it at the close at 1645 and sold it at 1697 the next day. And so forth, 1624 and then 1694. On this one, it fell really low, and that's sometimes a good thing. It was 1591, and then the next day it got up to 1647, and then 1630 to 1698. So it's like it has this regular pattern of always closing, always hitting higher prices than the previous day's close. And you wonder, well, does that mean it goes up forever? No, it doesn't. Sometimes it falls down, and then the process starts all over again. You got to be careful not to be in those days when it falls. And I have been caught in those traps before, but I found that if I just stay in the stock, instead of selling it for a big loss, it'll turn around eventually. And this stock, that's one of the good things about it. It turns around a lot. Like, even if it falls badly, it usually retraces back to where it was. So anyway, that's my secret to how money has been flowing in. It's Sunrun, plus I have other stocks like this that I follow. They're not just solar stocks, but again, solar is my favorite part of the market, and Sunrun is my favorite stock. And I trade that more than any other stock. But again, there's other stocks. I'll just tell you a few. Rivian is a electric vehicle maker, and another solar stock is called Shoals Technology. There's other like smaller tech stocks, like Resolve is this small, RZLV is the ticker symbol. They just their stock just doubled in the past month, and I was in and out of it on its way up. I could have just stayed in, but I didn't know it was going to go as high as it did. I just liked the pattern it had, and it was closing higher. each day. So that's a sign for me to jump in and get going with it. Anyway, the cool thing is I can spend the rest of the day once I buy a stock around the 1 p.m. hour on the West Coast. All I have to do is wait till the next morning and then sell it. So I'm only in the stock for a matter of minutes. However, there are times when I stay in the stock if it keeps moving up. But in that whole time from 1 p.m. to the rest of the day, I get to play guitar or do whatever I want. I don't work for corporations. Corporations work for